Being rich is fun, so I decided to join a random server on Minehut with only one goal: to become the richest player on the server in only 24 hours. I quickly did the tutorial and I built the foundations of my factory. Basically, the dropper drops blocks which go over the conveyors into the furnace, and then I earn money. Then I decided to check out the competition around me. My neighbor was making 540,000 per block. I was making 10 per block, so I definitely had some catching up to do. But first, I checked out the farm, which was full of melons. For some reason, I got 13 pumpkins. I have no idea why. But most importantly, it gave me a temporary money multiplier, which will be useful since I'm trying to become super rich. I then got trapped and drowned in lava. What a friendly welcome. On the server, your prestige equals your wealth. Whenever you prestige, you get completely reset, but you get a permanent money multiplier. The maximum is prestige 5, which is what I'm going to try and achieve. Apparently, a good time for reaching this prestige is 40 hours. I had given myself 24 hours, so this was definitely going to be a challenge. I bought some free stuff from the shop and I started expanding my factory. I then bought the most expensive upgrader I could, which multiplied everything by 2. I then bought some cheap upgraders which added 10 cash to all my blocks. Since my blocks were only worth 10 cash, my quartz upgrader was pretty useless, but it came in handy later. I then completely changed the layout of my factory to try and save as much space as possible. In the end, it was completely useless since my factory could only have a maximum of 5 droppers, which are called ores for some reason. I ended up joining the Discord so that I could have 7 droppers in total just to make even more money. I went AFK for a bit. When I came back, I decided to visit some more plots to see how I could make my factory more efficient. And it turned out I was being an idiot. I could extend my conveyor and place multiple upgraders so one dropper could make me a ton of money. How did I not think of that? Using this method, I put all my droppers on one conveyor so that the blocks could go through as many upgraders as possible. Right at the end, I put my quartz upgrader, which doubled every single block. Look at that, it came in handy. I went to go eat some pasta, and when I came back, I had made 500,000 cash. That was the good news, but my factory was in the shape of a massive L. It wasn't a great look. I bought a new stone dropper for 500,000, which gave me 100 cash for each block with no upgrades. I bought a couple more quartz upgraders and rebuilt my factory, but it ended up in the L shape again. After visiting my new neighbor, I saw a better way to organize my factory. Using some faster conveyors which cost 1,000 per block, I was earning a lot more money. I bought some more stone droppers and I added a ton of basic upgraders since the uses were infinite. All of them added 10 cash to my block's value. When I paired that with my 5 quartz upgraders, the money was rolling in. I also added 3 refined upgraders which multiplied the value of my blocks by 1.5 times each. Slightly worse than the advanced upgraders, but hey, any multiplier is good enough for me. I then purchased a chain upgrader, which meant my block's value had a 50% chance of halving or trebling. I bought another one and my cobblestone's value ranged from about 153,000 to 923,000. That's quite a lot of money, and I had been playing for less than 2 hours. I ended up extending my factory and adding even more basic upgraders. I also bought a magmatic furnace for 10 million cash, which multiplied every single block by 2 times. The new factory layout was working pretty well. I went AFK because I wanted to save up for 20 million cash, which I achieved after like 2 minutes. This let me buy the magma infuser. I placed it before the chain upgraders because it gave all blocks a magma effect, and every block with a magma effect had a 100% chance of trebling in value when going through a chain upgrader, and I had 2 of those. I would have bought more, but 2 was the max. This meant every stone block was worth 2.66 million cash. I saved up for 100 million cash to buy a deep slate dropper. After winding its way through the conveyor, I earned 12.19 million cash per block. However, I decided to get rid of my wooden upgraders to make my factory smaller. This meant even though I earned less money per block, I would get the money more quickly, so it would be a lot more efficient. I placed some more deep slate droppers and I was earning 9.72 million cash per block, but at a much quicker pace. I then destroyed my entire factory to place down some faster conveyors to earn money even more quickly. That's what I call efficient. I added in the final deep state droppers and I went AFK. I was saving up for 25 billion cash to buy the blackstone dropper since every block it dropped was worth 25,000 without upgrades. When I came back, I talked with someone and found out they managed to prestige in 11 hours. At the time, I was nearly at 3 hours, so I had about 8 hours to earn 100 quadrillion cash, and that was only step 1, since I needed to reach Prestige 5. I bought my first Blackstone dropper. With all the upgrades, one block was worth 48.6 million. With the added income, I saved up for 30 billion cash. This let me buy 15 bamboo refiners for 2 billion each, adding a 28.42 multiplier to the value of my blocks, or ores. Apparently they're called ores. I added in some more Blackstone droppers, and by this point I was earning over a billion cash per ore. With my new money, I bought a coal dropper for 100 billion. When I placed it above my furnace, it multiplied my ore by 4 times. I then purchased the frozen lagoon for 300 billion. Paired with the coal dropper, it multiplied all of my ore by 15 times. This meant one of my ores was worth 20.7 billion cash. Then I bought 2 mangrove upgraders for 10 trillion cash, which in total multiplied my ore value by 4 times. I quickly hit 50 trillion cash, so I bought a copper dropper. This dropped copper ore, which was worth 1 million cash without upgrades. With upgrades, it was worth 221 billion, and that's not even counting the 15 times multiplier. I then bought an acacia infuser upgrader for 15 trillion. It gave the same multiplier as the bamboo upgraders, but it saved a lot more space, meaning I could earn money even more quickly. Eventually, I only had copper droppers, meaning I was making the maximum amount of cash I could. After about 20 minutes, I hit 2 quadrillion, which was 2% of the way to Prestige 1. I decided to buy 2 prismarine refiner upgraders for 1 quadrillion each, which multiplied the value of my ore by 2 times. I managed to buy 3 more, hitting the maximum of 5 prismarine refiners. Each copper ore was now worth 7.07 trillion without the 15 times multiplier, which was insane. I switched out the brown conveyors for the light blue ones since they were way faster. But at 5.69 hours, I hit my first problem. My copper ore wasn't earning me any money. After some help from a couple of players, I just had to remove 1 copper dropper and I was back to earning trillions. This was because I had 8 droppers instead of 7, since the coal dropper counted as 1. The panic was over. Less than an hour later, I hit 100 quadrillion. I was actually at 149 quadrillion, which was more than enough for Prestige 1. It reset my plot and inventory, but I now had a permanent 2 times multiplier for my money. I also unlocked the second layer, meaning that I unlocked the second part of the shop and power and gems were useful. The point of earning power per second was to fuel my droppers, conveyors, upgraders, and furnaces on the second layer. This gave me gems which I needed to buy stuff. For example, I could spend gems to earn more power per second to fuel better contraptions on layer 2. I could also spend gems to buy better contraptions on both the first and second layer, which would help me earn more cash. And finally, I needed to have gems to Prestige. Prestige 2 cost 200 quintillion and 1 million gems, so I had a long journey ahead of me. I built a small factory on the second layer to earn some gems. Whilst I followed the same technique as before for layer 1, I was also spending gems to earn more power. I was advancing quickly on layer 1 and the money multiplier was helping a lot, but progress on layer 2 was incredibly slow. I was earning gems, but it definitely wasn't the most efficient way. Back on layer 1, I surpassed my old factory. I had 32 quadrillion cash, which gave me enough to buy the per cataclysm upgrader. This meant my ore now had a 50% chance of being destroyed and a 50% chance of gaining 5 times its value. It may sound like a risk, but because I had 100 gems, I could afford the gem upgrader. This gave my ore the crystallized effect, meaning my ore had a 100% chance of gaining 5 times its value. I bought 2 more of the purple cataclysm upgraders since the maximum was 3, meaning my copper ore was worth 884 trillion without the 15 times multiplier. I then hit 4 quintillion cash, allowing me to buy the ore reinforcer upgrader. This multiplied the value of my ore by 2 times. I bought 4 of these in total since that was the maximum. In between all of this progress on layer 1, I was using my gems to upgrade the amount of power I earned per second. However, my factory layout was agonizingly slow. I then found out my layer 2 factory layout was trash, so I changed it to the recommended design and it was a lot better. I used the polished underground dropper, the base basic conveyors, 2 underground upgraders, 3 cobble refiners, and a flamed furnace. It consumed more power than I earned per second, but it still worked. No idea why, but I'm not complaining. Not long after, I hit Prestige 2, which gave me a money multiplier of 4. I set up my factories on layer 1 and 2 again, and after about an hour of playing, I was back to where I was. For Prestige 3, I needed 1 septillion cash and 10 million gems. I was getting gems pretty quickly, but the 1 septillion was going to take ages to get. I ended up going AFK for a couple of hours, and I reached 3.7 sextillion. My momentum had considerably slowed down, but if I wanted to be the richest player on the server, I would have to dedicate everything to this Minecraft server. I decided to start using the farm to increase my money multiplier temporarily to about 6 times. By using the farm and going AFK for a bit longer, I finally reached 6 sextillion cash. This meant I had finally saved up enough money to buy the Hellstorm upgrader, which gave a 1000 times value of every single ore. Except it was 5 sextillion, not 6, so I had wasted like 30 minutes. I placed down the Hellstorm upgrader, which was absolutely huge. To power it, I needed the amethyst dropper. It cost 1 million gems, which was fine, but I didn't know where to place it. After some advice, I found the right spot to place it, and I was earning a lot of money. Look at those particles. My laptop was working overtime, but after less than a minute, I was already at 10 sextillion cash. I was soon able to afford bamboo droppers, which cost 20 sextillion. Every ore it dropped was worth 50 million in value without any upgrades. I quickly hit 1 septillion cash, meaning I had enough to prestige. I did the exact same things as before, but this time I had a multiplier of 8 on my money. On layer 2, I extended my traditional factory layout by adding another dropper, so now I earned about 500,000 gems per second. I then bought a new furnace for 10 million gems, which multiplied my ore value by 4. I spent a ton of gems on upgrading my power as well, which was looking pretty good. I managed to reach 5 sextillion pretty quickly, allowing me to buy the Hellstorm upgrader again. By the way, for some reason, this was my first time using the bubbling magma steam furnace. It only cost 40 quintillion and it gave me a 50 times multiplier with the coal dropper, which definitely would have been helpful earlier. Anyway, I was back to making a lot of money, especially with the bamboo droppers. On layer 2, I added in a few underground upgraders. They each cost 1 million gems and they added 100 gems of value to each ore, and I was earning a lot of gems, which was good since I needed 1 billion for the next prestige. On layer 1, I bought a magical infuser upgrader for 50 septillion cash. It added 1.15 times value to my ores, and since the next prestige cost 35 octillion cash, I would need all the upgraders I could get. After some AFKing, I managed to buy 15 of the new upgraders. I put it in this layout since it was more efficient than just having it in a straight line, and it saved space. I was soon able to reach the maximum of 30 of these upgraders, meaning all I had to do now was wait. I had already reached 1 billion gems, so I just needed 35 octillion cash to prestige. At 20.5 hours, I had enough money and gems to prestige, so I started setting up my factory again. The good news was I was only now 1 prestige away from reaching the maximum of prestige 5. The bad news, I had less than 4 hours to reach it. It cost 20 noctillion cash and 100 billion gems, which was a lot more than prestige 4. Thankfully, I now had a 16 times money multiplier. While I was waiting to earn some money, I decided to check out the store. I found out that if you spend real life money, you could place more droppers. Since I was a default rank, my maximum was 5 droppers plus the 2 extra from linking my Discord. For £6, this increased to 8 droppers. £12 gave you 15 droppers, £21 gave you 20 droppers, £36 gave you 35 droppers, £60 gave you 50 droppers, and £96 gave you 80 droppers. In short, someone who bought a rank would have a massive advantage over people who didn't buy a rank. My goal on the server was to hit the maximum prestige in 24 hours to 1, become super rich, but 2, to show you don't need to pay money to get an advantage. I continued expanding my factories on both layers and I started using the farm more frequently since it temporarily gave me a massive money multiplier. On layer 2, I bought bought my first mossy refiner, which gave me 10 times extra value on every ore. The crying obsidian furnace I'm using also gave me 4 times extra value, which would help me get a lot of gems. I was also constantly upgrading my power per second to fuel my factory. On layer 1 I was finally back to my old factory setup. Since time wasn't on my side, I couldn't wait around in AFK because there was no chance I would reach 20 Noctillion cash. I decided to spend my time at the farm, constantly breaking melons for the temporary money multiplier. I eventually hit 5 Octillion cash. It was quite far off from the 20 Noctillion goal, but I could buy the Cherry Hut upgrader. It multiplied the value of my ore by 2 times. It wasn't overpowered, but it was a massive help. At 22.5 hours, I had 3 of the Cherry Hut upgraders, since that was the maximum, but my factory on layer 1 was looking good. However, I had nowhere near 100 billion gems, meaning my tactic on layer 2 would have to change. I decided to check out some other factories to take inspiration from other people's layouts. I found this factory where they were just pushing the ore back and forth through the upgraders, which added an extra 100 gem value every single time. This meant when it passed through the other upgraders, which multiplied the values of the ores, that would equal a lot of gems. So I decided to copy it and replicate it on layer 2 of my factory, and I just left it going back and forth. I went back to the farm and I quickly hit 50 Octillion cash, which let me buy the bedrock furnace. Paired with my coal dropper, it multiplied the value of my ore by 250 times. I was earning a lot of money, but I wasn't sure if it would be enough to hit prestige 5 within 24 hours. So I went back to the farm. After about 10 minutes, I hit 250 Octillion cash. This was enough to buy the cherry dropper. Every ore it dropped was worth 1 billion cash, which meant the money was suddenly rolling in. I was quickly able to buy 4 more, so I replaced all of my bamboo droppers with cherry droppers, and I mean, just look at all of that money. Whilst I was at the farm, I hit 23 hours, meaning there was only 1 hour left to reach prestige 5. I had hit 1 Noctillion cash, but my gems hadn't increased at all since they were still going back and forth in my factory. I decided that it was a good time to see how many gems I had earned using this method, but there was only one problem. I didn't know how to switch the direction of the conveyor without having all of the ores fall onto the ground and disappear. If that happened, there was no chance I would become the richest player on the server. In the end, I opted for a quick right click, and thankfully it worked. After the ores went through all the upgraders, I hit 177 billion gems, which was more than enough for prestige 5. I just needed 20 Noctillion cash, and I was 15% of the way there. The problem was I had less than an hour to get the rest of the money. I went back to the farm and I just kept breaking melons. This last hour was nerve-wracking. If I failed, I'd spend 24 hours on a random Minehut server for no reason, and it would be a victory for pay-to-win players. Eventually, I hit 20 Noctillion cash, meaning I finally had enough to prestige. I went back to my plot and I typed in the command. I had reached prestige 5, the maximum on the server, and I had done it in 25 hours. No, I'm just kidding. I did it in 23 hours and 30 minutes. I had become the richest Minecraft player within 24 hours for the free-to-play players. We did it. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for 10,000 and thank you for watching.